All right. Welcome everybody to the Raiders Report. I'll be hosting the podcast show this season. My name is Yann. And the podcast should be available on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. We also got the video format, should be up on our YouTube channel. That's Nepean Raiders. So I'm excited to continue this podcast and bring in some fun guests. And I got one right here already, Matt Young. Thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate it. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Definitely looking forward to doing this for sure. It's my first podcast, so it should be fun.
Hey, I tried doing a podcast with some students and it just fell through. So it's almost the first one for me as well. So appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Listen, before I do anything and ask any questions, I need to apologize for getting your name wrong in that text. I don't know if you if you remember that. That was
Yeah,
brutal.
no, that's fine. We can blame Trevor if you need to, but because he did tell me he tried to get Phil as well, but no, it's all good, man.
Yeah, I mean, just to explain it a little bit, he gave me your information and he also talked about Phil coming on later. So, I composed my text and I get one back almost right away from you. It's like, this is Matt Young, actually, the goaltending coach. And I was like, oh, that's so brutal. This guy's never going to want to come on now. But
Yeah, no, he kind of told me that he wanted me to be one of the first guests just because I'm a pretty patient, laid back guy, so I wasn't really too stressed about it.
hey, that definitely helps. But anyways, thanks for coming on. I definitely won't be getting your name wrong from now on. That's for sure.
That's all good.
All right. Just to give a little history about yourself and you sort of where you came up from. I know you played you played some junior A and then you even played 2 seasons NCAA with Finlandia University, if that's correct.
Yeah, that is correct. It's a pretty bizarre name, but yeah.
Yeah, it's in Michigan,
Middle,
right?
middle, no. Yeah, it's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, kind of the area that everyone forgets about. Basically it looks like a little horseshoe up to the left, but it's definitely cold as heck up there.
Oh boy.
We can get into it about there. It's a whole other world. Like a lot of people up there say, like it's almost like Canada, the way that the lifestyle is up there and everything. But
Okay.
yeah, it was quite the experience for 2 years.
Yeah, I guess my question was, what was that playing experience like for you as a goaltender, kind of coming up there?
It was, I I was more worried on the school side more than a hockey side, to be
Okay,
honest,
yeah.
just because I played 3 years of junior A, and I didn't really do any schooling. And with the Raiders and everything now, I try to encourage the guys if they're not in high school to take at least a course, because that's one thing I regretted not doing. I got to Finlandia and I had some teammates that took courses during their junior career, and they had so much built up that they weren't taking all those early prereqs that had nothing to do with your degree.
Right.
So like the English classes, the math classes, right? Like my degree is in psychology, and those are courses I don't really need, but I need it as a prereq to graduate from the university.
Right.
So I kind of regretted that because, some of these guys were taking only 3 or 4 classes, which is considered full time, but I had to take the full 5, maybe even 6 classes just to make sure I graduate on time. So
Right.
that's one thing. The other thing too is we kind of get lucky here in junior hockey with typically practicing later in the evenings or
Sure.
late afternoons. Finlandia, we practiced at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Oh
We
my, that's
went
brutal.
7 to 8:30, and then if you didn't have class, you could stick around as well. Uh, for most people, I don't know if they know, NCAA, you can't skate with the coaching staff for the whole month of September. You have to basically run a captain skate, which,
Okay.
for us kind of was like a glorified scrimmage. Like we did a few drills and then we would just scrimmage. And a lot of schools tend to do that anyway. But those captain skates were at 6 a.m. for the whole month of September. So that was kind of a nightmare. And I remember my freshman year, my first year, I was so bad. Like I can only imagine what my teammates thought. They probably thought I was some like bush league goalie. Like hey, who the heck is this guy? A lot of my teammates, like with that school, they kind of came from tier 3 junior A in the US, which is
Right.
like I would kind of equate to like junior B up here in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have basically the NAHL is probably more equivalent to our level in the CCHL.
Yeah.
And then there's so many tier 3 junior A leagues in the US. Some of them are really high, like I don't know what they're classifying the USPHL and the NCDC nowadays, but some of those tier 3 or whatever they're classified, they're pretty high. But for the majority of them, they're kind of like I said, like junior B. So a lot of our team was that, but like for me being a Canadian coming from a tier 2 junior A league in Canada, like, you know, they were probably expecting big things, and I was
Oh yeah.
so bad because I couldn't, and like, it was funny because the following year I started to drink coffee, which helped a lot, but I wasn't drinking coffee my freshman year, and it was just, I was taking like emergency or doing whatever I could to just get alive at that early in the
Oh
morning.
man. What days of the week
Yeah.
were practices for you guys?
We went straight out Monday to Thursday. So the way the
Every
college, yeah, every single day. So basically what we did was Monday to Thursday we practiced, and then Friday, Saturday would be our games, whether it was on the road or at home, and then you kind of had Sunday as an off day, and then you turn around and do it again. It's basically like that from mid-October straight until, you know, beginning of March.
right.
Yeah,
Do you,
it's an absolute grind. Like Division 3, this is where the difference is because there's no Division 2. It's either D1 or D3.
right.
And D3, we have a 25 game schedule. Division 1 typically is 40 or more games. But even those 20, like I thought 25 games, I'm like, man, that's like nothing. But like that stretch between mid-October to the beginning of March was still a grind because you got all the practices, you got all your workouts, plus you get your schooling on top of that.
Yeah. Oh man. And the schooling on top, that's what does it for me. Like it's a lot of work that you gotta put into that just for a 25 season game too.
Yeah, you got to be very good at time management. And there was a guy on our team my second year who was taking nursing. So nursing is a pretty heavy,
Yeah,
that's a
it
pretty
is.
heavy, but yeah, so he was actually like studying on the bus and stuff. But like anytime I got on the bus, I can't read a book. I would get headaches and stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, you get distracted with videos. So I had to be really good at making sure my stuff was done before an away game on the weekend.
That must teach a lot though about time management for sure. I mean, it goes a
Oh,
long
it's
way.
huge. It's huge because in junior hockey, you can really slum it up. Like you don't really have to do much. You know, it's when I played, I built it with another teammate, so we kind of kept ourselves busy sometimes. But for the most part, we're just sitting watching Netflix or like working out, or
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it's tough in junior hockey to kind of keep yourself busy. But yeah, when you get to university, it's just nonstop. It's tough to get any time to just kind of unwind.
Yeah. Is the expectation from someone coming from junior A from Canada to the States, is that like expectation always like, oh, this guy's gonna change the game a little bit for us, or how does that work usually?
Well, in the case for my school, um, I think it did because they didn't necessarily get a lot of the tier 2 junior A guys, like I said. With the way Finlandia is, it's so rural in the northern, like up in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, that like it's hard to get kids to want to go play there because they're right along Lake Superior and there's a huge, huge lake effect. Like I'm talking when I was waking up at like 6 a.m. to like get ready for a 7 a.m. practice, I was clearing like 3 inches of snow off my car every single morning. It was it was crazy. Like it snowed nonstop for a month straight, like every single day. It just snowed. So it's such a unique area with that sense that it's really hard that people don't want to deal with that, right? Like I'm Canadian. I'm from the East Coast originally, and the East Coast always gets slammed with a lot of snow. So it was, you know, it wasn't a huge transition for me per se. It still kind of took a toll a bit because I've never had it snow nonstop for a month straight. But you know, there was, I think my first year there was 3 Canadians,
Okay.
and that's including myself. And then the second year, I think there was 2 or 3 of us again. So they don't get a whole lot, but when we do
Yeah.
come in, it's kind of you know, you're a Canadian coming in. There is high expectations
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah, that's great. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, I was just wondering because I feel like for those as you just said, those teams are mostly American guys. So just interesting to
yeah.
see what the dynamic was between bringing Canadian players or not.
Well, on the
Um,
flip side too is I also, before I jumped on with Nepean, I was coaching for SUNY Canton. They're a Division
right.
3 school across the border, and it's funny. They're half and half. They're half Canadian, half
Oh,
American. And before the games, like the actual home games, they'll play both the
the
U.S.
anthem.
and Canadian anthem because there's so many Canadians on the team that they may as well, and they're close to the Canadian border too, right?
Right.
So they there's the kind. It's also a geographic thing too, like from Finlandia to get close to Canada, it was 4 hours from Finlandia to get to Sault Ste. Marie,
Oh,
Ontario.
really?
Yeah, it's way up there, kind of isolated. I mean,
Right.
we basically, Finlandia is in Hancock, Michigan, and if you go across the bridge, that there's a canal down the middle, you go to Houghton, Michigan, where Michigan Tech is. Michigan
Oh,
Tech is a
okay. Yeah,
Division
yeah.
One program. So we got to, I was good pals with one of the goalies there, Jamie Phillips. He actually just retired from pro hockey, and he's actually goalie coaching for Michigan Tech now. So he's
Oh,
kind of done
wow.
a
Yeah.
full circle. But yeah,
Right.
we got to see them play and see that atmosphere. It's super cool. Like D1, obviously it's a bigger arena. The student sections are bigger. At D3, it's just kind of, we're more small independent schools, and
Right.
obviously the student sections and the attendance is going to be a little bit lower. But yeah, it's definitely a neat little town. The university itself is very, very small, which at the time I thought was going to be great, coming from prep school, which was also really small. It's like, oh, I'll get to be closer with my teachers. I was
In your
3 years
element.
removed. Yeah, I was 3 years removed from doing any schooling whatsoever. So I thought it would be good dynamic. They said they were revamping the psychology program, but then when I kind of ran into some injuries and stuff, there was no point in me staying there. The exchange rate was horrendous. So I
Right.
was like, I might as well just go back to Canada. I'm not playing hockey anymore. Like, outside the university, yeah, there was just no reason to. And it's, looking back at it, I kind of picked that university for the wrong reasons. And now when I talk to the guys we have now, I kind of tell them, like, when you go to visit a school, whenever that happens, because these schools are going to want you to come visit, and they're going to
Right.
wine and dine you, which same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Coach brought me out to dinner and all this other kind of stuff. They put me up in a hotel. So they're going to wine and dine you. But at the end of the day, you got to look at, when you're at this university, can you picture yourself going there if you weren't playing hockey? Because you also are going to have a life outside of hockey, right? You're going to have, basically you're going to have friends outside of hockey. You got to make sure you like the classes. You got to like the atmosphere. So that's one thing I didn't take into account or even think about. I was just stoked about having the opportunity to play a lot as a freshman. I played, what did I play? I think I played like 10 games in a freshman year
Okay.
out of the 25. It, you know, and then they were like, yeah, the psychology program is going to get a little bit better and stuff like that. But like, it never really did. So there was
Okay.
just a lot of factors, I think, that I could have taken into account, because there was other Division III schools I was talking to as well. And then the flip side on that too is I was really close with the goalies I had at Canton when I was coaching there. One of them actually played in the CCHL,
Oh, yeah.
but he basically said too, he's like, you got to make sure that the group of guys, are good too. And for me, our team atmosphere, there was a lot of cliques. It was just a little bit
Right.
divided. You kind of had, so yeah, it was a different dynamic. They play, one of the reasons why I went there too, they play in the NCHA, which is one of probably the top two conferences for Division III. It's so heavy with some big names like St. Norbert and Adrian are top Division III programs every single year. They constantly are contending for a championship. So I went there because I knew the exposure for potential pro career or anything would have been great. Because ideally, I would have liked to go to Europe for a year or two just to say I did it after I was done college.
Right.
But you know, injuries catch up with you, and then now I'm here coaching, which, truth be told, I enjoy coaching a lot. So
Before I just get on to coaching, I wanted to ask about Kent Roos and that season that, well, actually you were coaching there, but you helped the team get to a record season one of the years. I think it was 18-19, if I'm mistaken.
yeah, so my first year with them was their record year. So Canton is still currently trying to get into a conference. It's similar to Arizona State, where Arizona State is still considered independent.
Right.
You get put on independent with basically down the road potentially getting into a conference. So SUNY Canton is a State University of New York university, hence the name SUNY. So typically you would think they would get put into the SUNYAC where all the other schools are, like
Right.
Geneseo, Oswego, Potsdam, but they haven't been accepted yet. So they have to be basically labeled as an independent, which they are, and they have to win X amount of games to be ranked to even have a chance of winning an NCAA title, right? So they could still do it. They could still get in, but they don't have the luxury of a conference and winning a conference, winning their conference or finishing top two if they make it to the finals, and then that helps push them into the NCAA tournament. They have to outright just have an unreal record, which Arizona State did that last year. I believe it was the first time they made an NCAA tourney just because of their record and they were nationally ranked, right? So
makes it was phenomenal. Sure.
Oh, it is. And it's definitely hard for the players because when you kind of know you're out of it and you're not really have a chance for the NCAA tourney, it's hard for them because they're not really playing for anything anymore, right? So that first year, I owe a lot to those guys. Funny fact, one of the goalies was Josh Erickson, and him and I played against each other my 20 bomb year. We were both playing in the Northern. Yeah, we were both playing in the Northern Ontario League, and I was playing for Pulaski and he was playing for Kirkland Lake, and we met each other in the playoffs, and I beat him out in 6 games, and we were the 4 seed. Oh. So yeah, so going to Canton, I was like, this might be weird because we're the same age,
right?
But he was unbelievable. Like he was a pro. He never, not like big league, but like, are you kidding me? Like we played against each other. What are you gonna teach me? Like he was all for it. Those 3 guys. The other one was Mike. He's Italian, so the way you look at his name, people would say Sarasulo. It's actually Cherasuolo. Okay. And he played in Brockville, but he played as a backup behind Hank Johnson, who ended up going to Bemidji State D1. And then the other one was Austin Washkrick. He played in the OJ. But those 3, if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have necessarily had the success I've had with, Nepean and then what I had in Canton. Because I learned a lot from those guys too, right? They were all 22, 23, 24. So they were a lot older, and there was a lot of bounce back. And the way Canton was set up, the program was phenomenal. Like they own the rink; it's right on campus. These guys can go on whenever we want. So we just find an open time slot. We're like, coach, goalies are going out at this hour. I made sure I left it up to the 3 goalies to get shooters, and we were out there for an hour, and we just got stuff done. And I was going down twice a week. I was so invested. It was so much fun to actually like coach at that level. Like I know you could kind of see going from NCAA to junior A is a bit of a drop down, but for me, with the prestige of the CCHL, it kind of was too much not to pass up with having the potential to work with kids that could go to Division 1. And I really like the junior age, just that age gap. There's so much development there. Right. But yeah, it was a record year. The goalies were doing super well. I know Mike set a record for most wins in a season by a goalie. They did a great job recruiting players, and they kind of all just bought in, and the coaching staff did a great job of just keeping them going all year, regardless of, because there was at a point where we were out of it, but they still kept going and they still wanted to win. So, that was a blast. They're still doing well. Last year they did well again. What did they do? They tied Utica. I think they were ranked. Utica was ranked like top 5 in the country, and that was like their highest, tied against anyone, I think. And obviously Mike, who was there for his senior year, I think he stopped close to 50 shots. I mean, they tied 3-3, but 50 shots, he got, the guys got peppered every once in a while, but Austin, we called him Ozzy, like he had a really good year too. Like both of them were ranked in different categories, like nationwide. So they did really well last year as well. They just obviously they actually got ranked and mentioned. They had some honorable mentions in like the NCAA polls.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they made a huge step last year, actually getting some of those honorable mentions. So they're definitely on the up and up. And like I said, like it's a quick jot down the 416 here in Ottawa. Like it's literally, if you live in like Barhaven or Nepean, it's like a 50-minute ride. So it was very easy commute because at the time I was in the West End. So yeah, I owe a lot to those guys. I learned a lot. It was a great experience, and then I just kind of brought that over to Nepean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in success and how what people take away from it, but I can see that you took a lot out of that. So, yeah, that's great. I have a question about. So you studied psychology, right? I'm also. I'm sorry if I'm cutting out right now. All good.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, sweet. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm always interested in the psychological aspect of the goaltending role. How much of that plays into training and coaching? Like, you can be you're part of the team, but you can spend some minutes alone in your end. So just like staying in the game, like is that the psychological aspect? That's something that you guys touch on a lot when you're training with the guys.
Yeah, so I mean, last year our goalie situation in the PN, we had Tyler Rowe, and then we had Keenan Alnajas. He's an American, so he actually is down playing in the U.S. this year. He's also a 20-year-old.
Okay.
So yeah, so those two, the way I did it was I, I was at practice twice a week, and we would always do video beforehand if there was video. Like we saw each other a lot, and I'm still relatively young compared to some other coaches. So I basically had an open book. I'm like, guys, here's my number. If you ever need to reach out to me, that's fine. And I do always talk about the psychological aspects of the position, because I think that's one thing that potentially held me back sometimes when I played. Like, not necessarily get in my own head, but I would get some performance anxiety. I would get like anxious. Sometimes I would start thinking about the outcome of the game before it even ended. So there was just a natural transition for me to study psychology, because it's something that I was constantly battling. I've read so many books, and my favorite class during my psychology degree was sports psychology. So I took so much from all that kind of stuff, and I've met other, talked to other sports psychologists and other people with psychology degrees. So I picked up a lot of things, and obviously just from my own experience, I've been able to give these guys just a lot of tools. So it's one thing that I talk a lot about, because during the season, like, I've worked for goalie schools and I've done all that kind of stuff. I don't really do it anymore.
Right.
I train my guys in the summer. So the guys that I worked with in the PN last year, I kind of trained them this summer. But I don't really need to do a whole lot of technical stuff. Like, I do need to do it, but for the most part, it's more just situational. Like, how can we play this situation a little bit different, or put yourself in a better spot to make that save? And that all comes from the video that we do. But obviously, at the beginning of the year, I try to have a conversation, and then that's what I did this year. Because of COVID and the quarantine phase that we had, I had some time. I basically did a whole thing up where we're going to talk about, here's some stuff I learned, here's some tools you can have, here's what psychologists say. You tell me what you're currently doing for any kind of, pregame preparation, what you do on the ice when, say you let in a goal, or if you find your mind wandering. So just to understand what these guys are doing, I wanted them to tell me, is there stuff I told them during the presentation that they would like to implement, stuff they need to work on, and that way we kind of just get a feel for it. And then now they have some tools that they can start working on to help better themselves. And then obviously our season hasn't started at all, but I would like to do a halfway checkpoint to see how they're doing, and then do something at the end of the year as well, because I wasn't fully satisfied or felt like my mental preparation was legit until I got to college. Like, I spent 3 years of junior hockey trying to figure it out.
Right. That's a
So
long
like
time to
during
get
my
things figured out too. Like, I mean, it's
yeah,
definitely
it's
not easy,
tough.
right?
And like, there's one video that I always relay to people if they haven't seen it. It's on YouTube. It's just of Braden Holtby and his pregame preparation. It's like a 4-minute clip. I would want to say it's got to be like 5, 6 years old now. I might even, maybe 4. I don't know, but it's amazing. The goalie coach at the time for the Capitals was Mitch Korn, who's like labeled as a goalie guru. He's in it as well. And like, one thing he asked Holtby is, he said like Holtby's pregame prep didn't happen overnight. It was years and years in the making. But Holtby's got a list of stuff he's got to do to get ready for a game. And Mitch Korn said, like, is this too much? And then Holtby's like, my routine doesn't define me. I define my routine. Like, I'm in control of it. So I thought that was awesome. And it was just kind of a great way to see guys like, basically it's not going to happen overnight. Like it's going to take time and you figuring out how your body handles certain things. So yeah, so far, like the guys love what we did at the beginning of the year and they took a lot from it. So hopefully I'll just keep that going forward.
I mean, I was really interested because of your study of psychology. So I assume that must play a pretty big factor. And I think I mean, obviously I'm not a goalie, so I don't know much, but I felt like the psychological aspect could take a lot out of you. And like you said, like the, pregame jitters or maybe getting, just thinking of outcomes and stuff like that. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to try to switch it up and talk about the team this season. So, you're the goalie coach, and from what I know, there's the three guys that you mentioned in the organization right now, Connor Shibley, Brian Landesberger, and Evan Martin.
Yep.
I was just wondering if you could talk about their games. I guess I'll start with Connor. I know he tied the league record for wins last season, I believe.
Yeah,
so what can you say about his game?
Yeah, so Shibs is we call him.
Shibs.
Yeah, Shibs. I call him Shibber every once in a while too. Yeah, U18, he was phenomenal.
Right.
He was at our junior A camp last year.
Okay.
At our main camp, and he got into a couple exhibition games, and he was really good. He was one of the top goalies in the camp, if not one of the best ones. He was very dialed in, and I think for him, he told me like I had no expectation. I knew I was going back to U18, so there was no really weight on his shoulders. And then yeah, he just lit it up U18. You can tell he was just kind of a step ahead of the level. He was kind of that in between, and he was phenomenal. He was a steady Eddie. His style of game, I've told him, it's positioning. Like I've never seen a kid so dialed into his positioning. He was always in the right spot. He never really got caught out of position. He's got a great attitude. So last year was my first year with the organization, so this is my second year. I'm actually the only coaching staff member actually back this year. But Shibs' first year of midget, so that would have been 2 years ago now, he was a little bit heavier. And so going into last season, he dropped like 20 pounds. Like he just got in shape because he wanted it. The organization said, like, if you want to go places, like you need to start taking your fitness and your health better. So he wants it so badly. And then in the summer when I was training him, like I had to go to work because we were doing early morning skates, and they didn't kick us off the ice. So he stayed on for like another 20 minutes and just bagged himself skating, doing goalie drills and skating drills and stuff like that. His work ethic is amazing. He's constantly trying to get better. He's a great kid to work with. So it was awesome to see him make the club. I was happy to keep him around. We had a good relationship. Still lots of things to work on. He's told me numerous times this year, like, Matt, I got away with a lot of things last year at the U18 level that I can't get away with here. Just mechanically and how his body is for moving and stuff like that. Like he's always trying to get quicker with his skating. That's one thing that I've always seen in him, that his skating needs to just get a little bit more fluid and not look as rigid. But yeah, U18, there's a huge gap between U18 and junior A for sure. So, now with the U18 guys this year, I'm trying to be a lot harder so I don't have to hear them say I got away with a lot of things. I'm just trying to keep them as honest as possible.
Not something you necessarily want to hear.
No, yeah, like, I told him, like, we had a practice like today, and I was telling him, like, I was telling him, because obviously the first year goalie last year is in the second year this year for U18, and I told him I've been very hard on him this year because I don't want him to get away with anything this year. So yeah.
Other goalie, I guess Brian Landsberger, he just got acquired from Junior Centers in the fall and is with you guys and is making a move CCHL. What is it about his game that kind of stood out to you guys, or something that stands out?
Well, I think for anyone that, if we ever get fans or anything, but you look him up, like, he's 6'6". Like, that's the one thing that's going to stand out. Through all my coaching career, I've never had a goalie that was north of 6'2". It used to be no one bigger than 6 feet. But then Kenan Alnajas, he was 6'2", so he was kind of the first north of 6 feet.
Right.
But yeah, Brian is a big boy. He's very tall, but he also moves like he's a smaller goalie. Typically, bigger goalies don't move as well. They have a hard time skating, and Brian doesn't. Like he's he's basically, he can do the splits, he can do a whole lot of things.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I think he told me he's like double jointing his knees or something like
Oh,
that. But
that'll help.
yeah. So for him, one thing I've actually had to work on is trying to calm him down and get him to move a little bit less because he's so big. So we've just been
Right.
doing a lot of things to just kind of help him realize, like, you're huge, you fill a lot of net, you're going to get away with a lot of things that someone like Shibley, who's 5'11", he's
Right.
not going to get away with that kind of stuff, right? So it's been fun because I've never got to work with a guy that kind of size, but I think obviously Shibley is a 17-year-old, and when we get to Evan Martin, he's also 17. So I think he's going to be great for them too, because them two are going to be kind of the future of our goaltending. Because Brian's in his 20-year-old year, and my goal
Right.
and the organization's goal is to help him get Division One because that's his goal. And he's got the size and the style of play that will attract a lot of Division One schools. He's just going to kind of back it up with his play. And if you look at his numbers with OJS last year, they were phenomenal. He got
Right.
named goalie of the month in February. He was on a heater going in the playoffs, and then obviously the pandemic happened, so that kind of cut him short. But
Yeah.
I think he's added a lot to the organization because he saw what the culture was like in OJS and how dialed in those guys are to just winning and just kind of, the mental preparation, just everyone being ready to go at the rink. He's kind of brought that to our organization, which has been great for a lot of the guys. So he's definitely added a lot of value on the ice and off the ice. So it's been a pleasure working with him so far, and I really hope
Yeah.
we can get him to Division One for sure.
Yeah. That's very exciting, and wish him the best as well. And Evan Martin acquired this summer. Supposed to make a pretty big impact for you guys. Hopefully, whenever the season gets going. A couple words about him and his game.
Yeah, Marty. I called him Marty. I don't even
Marty.
think that was a nickname for him, but I'm just like, I'm going to call him Marty.
Yeah, I don't know those
Well,
yet. So
yeah. Well, we've had some development scrimmages against Kempville, and then when we had like that 28-day modified stage 2
right.
here in Ottawa, we weren't really playing a whole lot. But he's looked surprisingly really well in the games too. Like he's a big boy too. Like he's a bodybuilder type frame. Like he's
Okay.
only, I don't know what he's listed at. I know he's over 6 feet. I think he's like maybe 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", who knows? But he's got like tree trunks for legs. He's very, very quick. He's got a good pedigree for Newfoundland, playing for Team Newfoundland. Like he comes with
Right.
all the accolades. So he's looked really well in the net. He's another kid that he's been kind of fun to get to know. Obviously, I've known some Newfies being from the East Coast, some
Right.
Newfoundlanders. He's a little bit quiet, but he's coming out of his shell now, and he's been fun to work with too. So yeah, hopefully he keeps developing too, just like Shibley, and then we have two great 1A 1B options next year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, lots to look forward there on the ice for you guys. I mean, also on the bench as well. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. It's a whole new coaching staff, except for you. You're the only guy returning. Phil Bergeron that unfortunately wrote his name that texted you, and Takashi Yamanaka. I hope I'm saying that right.
You got the last name. It's Takeshi. But the last
Takeshi.
name is
Oh,
pretty. Yeah, I think you said the last name better than I would.
that's bad, man. I lived 2 years in South Korea, and I got really good with names, and I get back here, and it's just pathetic. But anyways, yeah, new coaching staff there, and obviously, I'm sure you guys have had the chance to meet and chat, but lots to look forward there.
Yeah, like it's good. It's the other one you missed was Josh Horner.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, Josh and I played against each other as well. So
Oh, okay.
he played. Yeah, so my last year in the Noj with Powassan, he played for Mattawa. He was one of the goalies there. So him and I have known each other for a few years now, and he was with Canada as a volunteer assistant, and then
Okay.
he came over with us this year. So yeah, we've been doing practices and stuff during all this COVID, like following all the protocols, but we've been doing
Yeah.
the practices, and it's a great group. Like Phil, I can tell he's really trying to change the culture, and it seems to slowly but surely be working with the players. But he's a great, so far he's a good detail-oriented coach. Blowing anything down if it's not going how he thinks it
Right.
should be, or what he's trying to teach for a system, or forechecking or anything like that.
He's not shy
But
of
the
letting the
big
guys know, I guess.
no, not at all. And like for him, like I said, like the culture is a big thing, and you can tell he's just trying to like get these guys to have good work ethics, look at the little things, all the small details. And then that's just bleeding into Josh as well, right? Like Josh is a very detail oriented kid. He's a former goalie. Phil's also a former goalie as well. So that's the other thing I told the goalies on the team. I'm like, look, you got a head coach and an assistant coach. You're a former goalie, so you're going to get a lot of the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, Josh he kind of went straight for the player side of things, and he's a great young mind. He's just a year younger than me. And then Takeshi, we call him a wizard. He is phenomenal with video. Like this
Oh yeah.
guy, this guy has like a million different like clips of like double IHF, the World Championships, World Juniors,
Right.
NHL clips. Like if they're trying to implement something, like Phil just asked Takeshi, and Takeshi's gonna have a clip of something with it. Like he's got just this bank
Wow.
because he just eats, sleeps, and breathes hockey, and he helps me out a lot with the shooting on the goalies at the beginning of
Okay.
practices. So he's definitely, the goalie's get a kick out of him. He's a fun guy to be around for sure. So it's a good group. It's a good dynamic. Obviously if it wasn't COVID, we're November now, we'd be 2 months into the season. So
Yeah.
it would like to say that it's definitely a turnaround from, last year's, but, so far, like the group of players we got, the coaching staff, like it's definitely trending upwards from what it was last year for sure. So hopefully whenever we can get a season going, that will translate into more wins and losses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure everybody's looking forward to that season on the ice there and off the ice for you guys as well. Listen, Matt, I'm all out of questions for you. I really appreciate you coming on and discussing the team and then a bit about yourself as well. Super interesting. So yeah, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully you can finally get Phil on and get some of the other staff. And I'm sure you'll
That's
probably go after some players too at some
Oh
point.
yeah,
But
I'm gonna hunt them down. So I'll get
yeah,
those
that's
players.
good. Be looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks again, Matt.
All right, no problem.